everyone. So we're about to start the program. On behalf of Dr. Patrick Flores, the curator of the Vargas Museum, I welcome everyone to the talk of Nepalese artist Guru and Sheelasha Vargas. And we also thank the Vargas art projects for considering the Vargas Museum as the site for the conversation. Okay? So we are very excited to hear the talk of our artists, specifically because their works have a strong social-political dimension. And there are a lot of students here from art criticism and curatorial studies who I think are also interested to hear about this aspect of their works. Also, we take this opportunity to invite everyone to view the exhibit, The Nature of the Collection. So this is the works that you see here in the lobby. So the works here show the paintings of leading Filipino artist Fernando Amorsolo, but more than their aesthetic merit and also the intersection with the life of Jorge P. Vargas, for which this museum was named after. We also look at the themes of the works present here, such as the body, landscape, politics, culture, and the family, which I think will be tackled somehow. So, thank you.
Yes, sorry. Thank you very much to the Vargas Museum and all the staff. My name is Inti Guerrero. I'm the artistic director of the Las Artes projects. Sheelasha and Hitman are artists in residence, that's why they're here. And basically, our residencies take place at our residency's headquarters in Bataan, and they spend about 3 weeks in research. Maybe they will tell us towards the end of the presentation a little bit about that experience. And we're very happy that we have this opportunity to partner with another institution here at the City to create dialogue with other audiences. But I also encourage you to visit us in Makati if you haven't. And also to come to activities that happen there, such as this one, or like film screenings that we do. So I'll just introduce you. Sheelasha and our artists that live in Kathmandu, in Nepal. And they are very interesting artists in the sense that their process, which you'll see, are quite responsive to their context in different specific time of history or present time. And we thought that it was a practice which was quite relevant to bring to the Philippines because they have worked in different ways, both individually, in their own practice, or collaboratively, both of them, or with a larger group that they founded there, on subjects that have to do with migrant work in Nepal. As you might know, or you might not know, like the Philippines exports a lot of labor that runs globalization. Like financial markets would not really happen if there weren't any workforce from the Philippines or Nepal that do labor that other industrialized societies, citizens of those places are doing. So that's just a general introduction. So thank you very much. If you prefer sitting or up or standing, whatever you want.
You would sit, yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Niti, for the introduction. Thank you all for coming today. Thank you for your time. I'd like to first thank you, the Artist Project, for inviting us. Thank you, Inti and Jam. It has been a wonderful experience here. I'd like to start with the map of Asia. Here you can see. I don't know how many of you know where Nepal is. Do you know where Nepal is? Yeah. Yeah, so we're there right between the two gigantic, very economically growing and competitive countries like China and India. Yeah, the little blue one, and the Philippines is there. So you can see geographically Nepal and Philippines is very entirely different. We are a landlocked country, so three sides of Nepal, as you can see there, is surrounded by Indian landmass, and the northern side is China, and Philippines is like comprised of 7,000 islands. We don't have sea at all, so it's really interesting how different we are. But at the same time, we've traveled this many distance and come here in Philippines and really feel like home. Ethnically also we look very similar, like especially him, like everybody starts to talk with Filipino and with him. And also like how the nature of people, how we speak, the family structure, everything is so similar. And another thing which is really similar is how both of the country really depends upon the remittance of migrant workers sent home. So that was the subject we were kind of interested in. So population-wise, we're a bit different, very much different actually. So Philippines have 104.9 million, whereas Nepal is 29.3 million. So around 70 million years ago, as you know, we had like different continents and the land masses which collided around the sea, and then 70 million years ago, the landmass, what is India today, collided with the landmass which is Euro-Asian plate, or with around the area of Tibet today. So it literally collided, and Nepal was born like out of nowhere from the sea. So that is one of the reasons why you can see. So in Nepal we have like highest mountain in the world, Mount Everest is in Nepal, and that is why because we had all the Himalayan area, you can see, was under the ocean. So on the top of the Himalayas also you can find fossils which used to be under the sea. So we're really, in terms of like landmass, we're very new, but it is also the reason why earthquake happens. Because we are right between the fault line. So in Nepal, so every 80 to 100 years we have this gigantic earthquake. It has been there in the history, written in the history for thousands of years. It has been like that. So recently in 2015 also we had an earthquake. So this, I would like to, it's very dark over there, but I'd like to start with the work I did. Maybe this one. Anyways, so this is work I did. It's about how geography relates and also influence foreign politics. So as we are now in between China and India, and the geography will also be Nepal was formed by this collision, and that sort of. That geography still influences Nepal's foreign politics, because northern side of Nepal is all Himalayas, and trade and transport is very difficult from that side, and from the southern part of Nepal, it's India, and 80% of our trade is with India, so we really have to depend upon India. So historically speaking, from around 2000 years ago, there had been a trade route from India to Tibet, and so what happens is Nepal's capital Kathmandu was one of the most important trans-Himalayan trade route, center of one of the most important trans-Himalayan trade route, and so it kind of faded away with the politics, with Tibet taken over by China, with little kingdoms of India colonized by British. So all this politics changed later, and then the trade route also faded away. But then Kathmandu was formed because of that trade route. But later again in 2015 we had earthquake, and we had a blockade from Indian borders, so our trade was very much affected, and for the first time in the history we signed this very powerful trade contract with China. So we were politically more pro-Indian, and from 2015 we started to become more pro-China, which is not like good or bad. I'm just like in a neutral position here talking. But what happened is Nepal is now like small country, and it's now kind of pendulum between India and China in terms of politics, in terms of trade. So in the center you can see there is a horse with a two head, and that's actually kinetic. And so the center part is Kathmandu, upper part is Tibet, and lower part is Delhi. And then the horse is placed in between the track of the train's track, because in 2016 we signed the contract to be part of Belt and Road Initiative by China. So as this new contracts kept on signing, the silent trade, the trade which we had in ancient time, that memory kind of evoked again in the contemporary time, and there were news in the international platforms that Kathmandu again could be this Trans-Himalayan trade route, again this and that. So this kind of reflects that pendulum in a way.
Hi everybody. So as we discussed with SP, so we had a lot of students. So we start talking about little bit about the art education in Nepal. So I was undergraduate in 2008. So before that we don't have master degree program in Nepal. So we have to go abroad for further study. So after I did my undergraduate, I started collaborating with the students from the university, those who were doing their undergraduation, and demanding a master degree program in Nepal. So we did a lot of public art and protest performance demanding a master degree program in Nepal. So these are some images from the performance. So the title of the performance was Walking on the Street. So we had a different routes which start from our university and we go back to the university. So it's a kind of pressuring the university to allow us to have a master degree program. So later, after a year, we got the master degree program because we also working with education ministry and Vice Chancellor of the university. So they agreed to start master degree program. So I was the first batch of master degree program in Nepal. So these are some images from the performance. So at the same time, we had this long, 10 years long civil war. So during 1996 to 2006 we had civil war. So in 2006, the Maoist party and government signed the peace process. So this performance was happening during this time. So some of the areas were restricted to do protest or any kind of performance. So this event is in front of this Siha Darbar, which is a parliamentary house of Nepal. So this area was restricted to do any kind of protest. So we were quite, anxious about some kind of interference from the policemen or authorities, but we don't have any kind of interference. So. As NTA had told us briefly about the migration situation in Nepal. So I've been working in this issue since 2010. So I'm doing a study and research meeting with families of dead migrant workers So Sheelasha and my colleagues were helping me to do research and conduct the materials and documents. So these are some images from our research trips. We traveled to different parts of Nepal to meet the migrant workers' family and have an interview and talk with them and collecting information and documentation from like district administration office and from the family members. So talking about the migration issue of Nepal, actually it started from 1816 when we lost the war with East India Company. During that time, India was like part of the British Empire. So after we lost the war, we signed this Indo-Nepal contract treaty with East India Company. So Nepal agreed to provide troops for them. So that's how the history of Gorkha started. So I'm one of the I belong to one of the community called Guru, who was part of Gorkha from the beginning of 1816. But later, after 1996, we had this long civil war. So because of insecurity or many reasons, and more than like 3,000 small and large scale industry was shut down. So many people became unemployed, and then we started to join this like labor migrant workforce, mostly in Middle East and Malaysia. So at the same time, the discovery of oil and natural gas in Middle East and the economic boom of Middle East and their desire to develop the infrastructure and make Middle East as a luxurious hub or global capital hub. So South Asia and like some country of East Asia where they can get cheap labor from these countries. So Nepal joined, Nepal also became one of these countries. So these are some documents, belongings of the dead migrant workers. So when I started doing research on these issues, every day there were like 1,300 people living in the country to join the overseas migrant workers. But now it's increased to 1,700 to 2,000, and after the earthquake this has increased more. So these are some images of the people in India. And the case of exploitation, abuse, and the death rate is very high, especially in Middle East and Malaysia. So every day we like more than minimum 3 dead bodies return back to home. So sometimes it's reached to 8. That's it's really. And it's because of the like bad condition, bad working condition, and also many people from Nepal, like those who join to this labor force, they are from very poor financial background, and also from many of them are like from high altitude. So when they go to Middle East, they are very low altitude and it is very hot temperature, and they get very like heat stroke and many accidents. So I will just go to some of my works. So these are the people who is standing to get more from it. So this was part of my installation which I did in Kathmandu Triennale last year, last edition. So I had one room. So when you enter to the room, you will see these light boxes, 15 light boxes, which was kept in the room, like in a gap of 5 seconds, each box will light on and continue in the same manner. So I tried to create a visualization of this, like people living every day in the same manner. So when you turn back, then you see these two coffins, which was brought from Saudi Arabia. So the dress was from Qatar, and he is still working in Qatar. I work from him. So it was part of the whole installation.
And the one to the right has gold.
Yeah, it was gold leaf. So it was gold leaf, and on the bottom there were infograph of remittance that sent in by this migrant workers from 2002 to 2016. What we can see in this image here. So in another coffin on the background, it's a print transfer of the newspaper, which is about the advertisement of the importance of that institute. So I want to talk more about this performance photography project I did in 2016.
Research
Started. So it was part of 52 artists and 52 action. So this project was kind of my memory travel. So I went to my village where I was born after 19 years and tried to trying to realize the changes that happened within these 19 years through the issue of this migration. So most of the character I played here are some of my relatives or people I knew in personal level. So these are the story of the real person that I knew from my village, who used to be in different professions, but now working as a migrant worker in Middle East and Malaysia mostly. So this is the story of one of the ex-Maoist guerrilla army, but now he is working in Saudi Arabia. And the costume was brought from the Qatar. So this is another story. He used to be a teacher, primary teacher, but he also working in Saudi Arabia now. So it's a real classroom from my village.
Yeah, this is not a set, it's a real classroom from the village he was born. There were actually only 5 students and 2 classes were merged. So like 5 students from 2 different classes, and there were so less people in that class, students in that class, because along with the international migration, internal migration is also happening. So when people go abroad and they send back money, so people migrate from village to like a town or city. So villages are getting more and more empty.
Yeah. And these fertile lands are becoming turning into forests because there is nobody working in the field. So, as Sheelasha says, yeah, it's like internationally and internally the migration is happening at the same time. People are shifting to the small towns or cities for education purpose or health purpose. Because in villages there is no good health system and education system. Yeah, so these are different characters I played on.
Water buffalo.
Yeah, we have also water buffalo. This is my thousand house. So and the dress, it's a Gurung cultural dress of my indigenous my community. This is a painting I did in 2015. So it was part of Asia Pacific Triennale 8 and now in collection of the Women's Land Gallery and Modern Art Gallery. So I want to tell a little bit about this work, the story about this work. So this story is based on the true story of a boy named Azubulu. He was just 16 when he went to Saudi Arabia to work. And after 6 months, he died in an accident, tragically. So he was the only son his parents had. So they had very poor financial background. So he wanted to have his family going working there and sending money. But yeah, so after they got the debt insurance of him, then they built a small house and now they're living there. So the father has one damaged leg and the mom cannot see by one eye. So yeah, and on the background it's all the skyscrapers from the Saudi Arabia. So we had a talk with his brother-in-law. So he was also working in the same company. So he said when they rescued the dead body, so he was wearing the yellow helmet. So this helmet is kind of symbols of his death. And this is another mixed media work, painting and photograph I did after the earthquake. So there are many Nepalese, working in building this stadium for the next World Cup in Qatar. So when the earthquake happened, they were not allowed to return back to their home to help their family because they were so pressurized to finish in the deadline. So, and also the reason of the many casualty and injuries happened because in villages area there were no manpower to immediate rescue or help. So this work I did to kind of imaginative way to address that stories.
So in 2015, when we had earthquake, more than 9,000 people died. Philippines is also kind of earthquake-prone country, right? So there are smaller quakes happening. So like I said before, in Nepal we have a history of earthquake which comes every 80 to 100 years. But bigger, smaller we have all the time. We get used to it, but bigger one, yeah. And but these bigger ones, it was so dramatic, or it almost felt like this can never happen to us in a way. When we listen to other story of tragedies, we feel, we don't imagine, at least I don't imagine it being, that it might happen to our own life, but it happened in a way. and also Nepal was not prepared in like logistically to handle such a disaster of such a huge scale. And then like even in one day there used to be more than 100 aftershocks. And so like we experienced the earthquake as well, and we were in different places. We were lucky we're alive now and talking to you. We escaped it in a very like narrow, and then after learning that we were fine, our family were fine, our house hasn't like entirely collapsed, then we started to think, how can we be helpful in this time of disaster? It was definitely not something we had planned at all. It was not in our mind, but we had to act really spontaneously at that time. So we started to help out randomly here and there, started to distribute food. But again, like we started to think again, we are artists, we are visual narrator, we use our sensories. How can we be helpful? How can we as artists contribute in this time of disaster? And we started to think, and we kind of started to realize that because all this mainstream news, BBC, CNN, all our national news, they were all of them were kind of focused upon how many people died, how many houses collapsed, because there were some villages and villages, the entire villages collapsed, not even single house left. So many people from like villages, like so many people died, got injured. But everybody was just focused in that. But then we needed somehow to move on beyond these dramas, and we started to think, and we visited different communities helping, and then one day we went to a community and we started to talk there, we started to visit there again and again, and we ended up there staying 6 months, and in that 6 months we also did a large community-based post-earthquake community art project, and we collaborated with 110 local and other contemporary artists, including the community members themselves. So what psychologists say is, during this time of bigger dramas, 3 months is they call it window period, where it's okay to be traumatized, it's okay to be have the anxiety. But if the anxiety goes beyond 3 months, then you need a professional help. So for that 3 months, we did like softer interventions, like inviting psychotherapists, inviting actors, and helping community members to express themselves, showing first aid, showing motivational movies, etc. And one of the things that I was interested in was me being a woman myself, how women cope in the time of disaster, because initially when we talked with the members of the community, what they were saying were children were the most affected ones because children didn't have schools, they were young. But then after we started to do research there, stay longer, we started to realize that women were the most affected ones. And can you guess why women were the most affected ones? Because in that community, first of all, it was a very like male-dominated community. Within Kathmandu also, that particular pocket was a bit stronger. And another was, around 80% of the women were either housewives or house-based workers. So for them, the house and the community was their entire life. So their entire life revolved around that community and that house. So after earthquake, for them, the entire community collapsed. Almost 70% of the houses were not livable. So for them, it was almost like losing the very precious part of their life. Because like children go to the school, men go to the work, so things like that. So in the initial stage, because it's also expressed visually, and at the time because the houses collapsed, and in the small camp around 1,000 people were living with they didn't have even room to move, and sharing only 3 toilets, so it was very difficult. So people didn't have space to express themselves. So in the initial phase, I gave the woman color and I encouraged them to express themselves, and these are one of the results. You see, I gave them all the colors, but they would only choose either black or dark blue. So it was kind of yeah, and then that will kind of scratches. And then I started to realize that there are very good kneaders, and professionally they knit also and sell their products. And then I started to think, how can I use the skill which they already have for them to explore themselves or express themselves. And I started to explore them and show them contemporary artworks or expressive artworks, basically, which was made by knitting or weaving techniques. These are from the workshops. And I click their photos, I turn it into black and white, turn it into 3-color, turn it into graph, and encourage them to read the graphs and knit the portraits in the graph. And at the end, we ended up making their own self-portraits like this. And also we intentionally exhibited. So at the end of the 6 months, we had 3 days kind of open for the public. So we turned the entire community into exhibition space. So there were 17 major exhibits, and one of it was this. And we really wanted the audience to visit the temporary shelter where they were living, and also we did the workshop in this temporary shelter. So I ended up collaborating with 10 women from the community, and we displayed it like this. So the bigger one is collectively made by all the women, and the smaller one like this. So one fact was that knitting is not taken seriously as an art or even as a craft. So it's something taken like sewing and knitting is something women have to do, like cooking. So that was the perception. And so they were not even respected for what they were doing, but despite the fact they were earning a lot by knitting itself. So this kind of changed in a way the perception of the local community, at least, that they had never imagined like making a portrait out of knitting, and people could actually recognize them, except one portrait. That one people could actually recognize them also, and they appeared in the national newspapers. So in a way, it kind of became a collective healing process also. And you see, you recognize it's only black and white, because in the beginning period they only choose the black color. And also I really wanted to give this big golden frame, this classical golden frame. If you see the history of portraits, it's repetitive and obvious that it's only generally of powerful men. So also I wanted to break that power game in a way. Yeah, some details.
Almost like the painting that we have around us.
Right.
Yeah.
So you see the details. So it was not easy in the first to learn to knit, because they have to count each and every dot in that graph. But it worked out, and it was a collective blissful moment for all of us. And it's a wonderful piece. And also this was inside 3 separate courtyards, so people really had to go inside, so that we so Hitman and I, LAs, yes. So Hitman and I were coordinating the whole exhibition, the whole project. So we were very conscious about making the decision where to exhibit the artwork, so the viewers would also have the experience of those women in everyday basis. So talking about earthquake again, when all this, you imagine like some of the heritage spaces of your own places from where you belong, and imagine all of it is gone by the shake. So that's what happened. This monumental structures which was there for hundreds of years, which survived the previous earthquake, gone, just dust was there. So that was a moment of contemplation for all of us, and for me especially, like how this permanent thing, what we call our heritage, is now gone, and what's left was the thing. So I was, and also it was a time, not the same year, but it was the year following that my grandmother also passed away, which was more dear to me than my mother because of the emotional connection. So it was really difficult time for me. That it was all going, the earthquake was there, my grandmother just died, so it really kind of impacted upon my current art practice and now how I think. So I was thinking about when the physical structures are gone, then what's there? So what's the big question? But then we started to think, we have our experiences, we have our oral histories, we have so many things on the basis of which we can rebuild again. We have our own body. My body continues so many things of my ancestors. So that was something I kind of start to think, and this work is like the work I did after the earthquake. So you can see that's me. That's my grandmother who passed away after I took this photograph, like a few weeks after I took the photograph. And that's my grandmother's grandmother. So my grandmother's grandmother was born around in 1890. And I just randomly found the photographs. And I realized she was wearing the shawl, which nobody like only few people wears nowadays. And I was curious. So we have like 5 generations here. And in between my grandmother and her grandmother, there's 50-year difference, and my grandmother and me, 50 years difference. So because I'm also very much interested in textile and how textile expresses not only people's personality, but socio-political, society and politics of that time. It's a material history, and it contains so much. When we talk about history, we only tend to think about textbook and the text, but then it can be so manipulative also. Actually, material history can be more authentic than the written history. And so I was interested in the textile also, like how it's a second skin. And I instantly was drawn by the shawl she was wearing, and I started to research upon that shawl, and it's called Dombar Kumari. It's made by natural dye by block printing, but now all the shawl you can get like that on the market is industrial, like machine made shawls. So I was kind of interested in, like I said, how Nepal is in between China and India, and how our trade how we influence their and them, and how they influence us. But nowadays, all around the world, of course, all the textile Nepali are wearing are really not made in Nepal. So I started to collect the tags of people who are living in our time, like of around 100 people I collected, and only 4 people were wearing made in Nepal clothes. Maximum were wearing made in China. So I collected the tags, and then I also recreated the shawl, the pattern. I draw the pattern, I created the block, I took the natural. It was very difficult because nobody was doing it anymore, so I had to do it everything. So I created the natural dye and created 2 shawls, and one I made my grandmother wear it, and one I wore myself.
Stitched
Yes.
tags.
Yes. And the tags I collected from my time. All the tags I stitched in the textile shawl I'm wearing. So you can see these are the detail of the tags. And also another factor is that you can see Jara, Lee, and these are not like real brands. It's counterfeited brands. Again, there's this psychology, like why we are drawn to certain brands so much. What is the psychology behind it? Why aren't we wearing our own kind of textiles? So these are just a question which is like popping up. And so in my grandmother's time, she had little bit of textile coming from China, a little bit of textile coming from India. So India, mind you, Bangladesh was not separated at that time. So when I say India, it's also from the Bengal region. But then mostly, a lot of people just wear made in Nepal clothes. So you can see very less tagging her. But in my time, like all the clothes is just filled with the tags. This is another series I have been working. It's about marriage taboos. It's about how marriage is an institution which kind of controls individual, and also not just all family controlling another individual from another family, but a whole country also kind of controlling their citizens. For example, how can you get your nationality? Like in Nepal, you can only get it through your fathers, or your father has to be crazy or something to get it from your mother's side. So things like that. So I have been doing a lot of artwork in this series. So this is one of it. This is called Agony of the New Bed, and how in a lot of cultures around the world, women have, after marriage, women have to change their caste, not caste, surname or to caste. Women have to change their house. They were born, they were born in, they have to shift to their husband's house. So imagine like owning something and like feeling that's your own, and all of a sudden when you get married you said no, it's not your own. So in Nepal you also, your own house is called Ghar. So when you marry, the name of your own house also changes into Maiti. You call it Maiti. So things like that. So I collected this is a kind of work on progress in a way, because I've been adding in this series. So in this one I collected photographs of a woman who are going to marry or married, and their stories or their feelings in a way, and express them visually, and blocking the portraits of their own, because it really like your individuality and your identity is really like almost gone after your marriage, because you have to give up so much, and also your primary focus becomes your husband's family, not your own, things like that. And then also how you were very expected to be a good mother, good housekeeper, but your own dream and individuality are side taken. And we see there's a permanent repetition of gold, because gold is such a huge obsession, at least in a lot of Asian marriages, at least in South Asia also. So parents, they start to collect gold from the time of the birth of their children for the marriage. And also marriage is such a huge thing. Like in average marriage in Nepal, there are around 900 to 1,000 guests, and 2,000 is a kind of a thing. So people actually, they sometimes they invest their entire life's money for one marriage of their kids, and then there's like party, sparkle, all this thing. But then one who is experiencing it, it's like a systematical erase of the identity. So it's not beautiful at all. It's not sparkly at all. So this party gold is actually covering your identity. And also actually marriage is one of the reasons for migration, because they want to earn money.
Especially from the southern part of Nepal.
So this is something we are doing here in the Villas Art, through the Villas Arts Project residency. So we were very much, instantly we were attracted to the similarity between Nepal's pattern of migration and Philippines. Of course we are different in so many ways, but even being different, we are so similar. Actually, you know what? If you Google Nepali and Filipino in YouTube or Google, the most of the common thing is either marriage or remittance. So it's marriage and remittance which connects us. So a lot of Nepali and Filipino marrying and remittance, yeah, things like that. So in Las Casa, Filipino de Cruza, we started with talking with the artisans working there. And then this, you can see, we visited one of the artisans like family, their home at Batan, and we started to research and then realized and then discovered that the artisan's sister is working at Dubai. Sister's husband is working at Dubai, and the husband's friend is Nepali. So we did a video chat with the Nepali. So left you can see the Nepali guy. He's from another city called Pokhara. And right you can see the sister's husband, and we were video chatting, and then we spoke in Nepali, and it was really interesting to talk about their lifestyle there, and also how interesting for us was how video call becomes the medium of connection to separated families. And then we also through our research we found that a lot of the artisans, especially the wood carvers, came from Paete. And then it was really interesting for us that the history of Paete itself was very fascinating. So Paete is actually the local language for chisel, Paete. It's a chisel. And then before the Spanish invasion itself, this place were very popular for wood carving. So Spanish, when they came, they were amazed to see the skill of wood carvers there. And then during the communication, so they asked the name and then they say Paete. So it's there's the history why the name Paete also. So basically Paete is the chisel. And then, so they started to adapt with, after the Christianity came with the Spanish, the wood carving skill was there, but then the context changed, so it became more saint and more Christian, more religion. And then later in this contemporary time, again, the carving skill is there, but again the context has more adapted with the globalization and consumer culture. So there are more and more artisans who are migrating as for example, ice carver, ice decorator, or decorator of the cuisine, fruit carver, butter carver, chocolate carver, so it's really interesting. And then, so these two lovely human beings, Goya, are from the Las Casa, and then we actually went to Paete with them and visited their family, their house, and it was a very emotional moment for us also because it was so relatable to us. It's a very parallel thing for us. And then we visited them, and so you can see now he's holding his own passport, and a lot of artisans from Paete, they actually work on the crew, like 5-star cruise, as a food decorator, things like that. And then when you work in the crew, you also need a separate passport, like ID card. So he's holding seafarer's ID card there, and same there. So it's 2. And you see how a lot of the time, especially when you go to countries like Middle East, Malaysia, you go in the contract. So the contract is 2 years, 3 years. Minimum is 2 years. And then you go there because of different condition, because of the financial condition. And you go there, you meet people from all around the world, especially predictably from certain countries like Nepal, Bangladesh, India, Pakistan, Afghanistan. And then you kind of develop, you have, because even in that temporary working condition, you develop this permanent emotional relationship. So you can see here, Goya, he has done the tattoo of, and it's It's
logo of Qatar.
and then he has written Qatar over there, so it's the memory of it lasts forever, and it also not bad at the same time. Like it also inputs you in so many ways.
He did by himself.
Yeah, he did by himself because he wanted that memory of Qatar over there. And also, but at the same time, there are things we miss, there are families we miss, there are situations which are very emotional, and it's a lot of the time it is not talked about when we talk about migration. Our countries are proud that there are these workers sending dollars, remittance back home. But in what cost is our question? Like in what cost? There are this generation gap, there gap in relationship, there gap in emotions, there are suppressions, and how, in what cost is our economy booming in a way is our question. And we think these micro elements, these units are just a unit, but then if we think in a collective manner, these units are collecting, and it does impact in a bigger scale, in a national scale, in the scale of the region. So you see, here's a photograph. So back then when we didn't have social media, so this writing on the back of a photograph in Nepal and in Philippines is a huge thing. How people communicated, how families connected before that video call existed. So this is like photograph of him when he was in the crew, and then on the back he says like, yeah, yeah, I mean they can read it, like how he's so sad and he's getting crazy because of the sadness. So in the left you can see this Koya when he was abroad, his wife was still pregnant, and then when the child was born, he didn't got the chance to see his child. So this is how they communicated. In the left, so she's pregnant, she's 7th month or
this image is when she was pregnant.
Yeah, with the 7th month old, and like she's writing, her feet is swelling up. And on the background you can see there's a TV and there was a fan also. So that TV and the fan was the first thing they bought by the salary abroad. And on the right again you can see the child is already given birth and is so big now. And they are grown up, and then and they're still communicating in the same way. Even she's in the same position and even wearing coincidentally the same dress also. And there are other series of these. So we are going back home, and we're going to connect with the families in Nepal also, and connect with the families who have connection in the Philippines. And so these are all learning processes now, and in the Philippines context, it's a baby step now, and we are understanding. But it's overwhelmingly so similar, and it's so emotional. We also need some time to like process also, to having seen all these things. So it's a work in progress, and
also we are very thankful to Raymond and RJ and all the lovely people from Velas Artist Projects, and also from the artisan from Las Casas. Thank you so much. You have any question, then please.
thank you, Jam.
Feel
Thank you,
free to,
team.
I do have some like questions while the audience in the room think of theirs. Can I just encourage you to speak a little bit more on the collective that you have, and to tell us a bit of the context, how it emerged and what exactly you do?
it's working.
Yeah. Does it have a strange sound? No, it sounds strange.
So, so Hitman and I are co-founder of an artist collective called Art Tree Nepal. So we do our nature is we are more drawn to socio-political realities, and we try to reflect them through our artworks. And we believe art is just more than a reflection of the society or a jewel of a nation, but artists are the critic also who can politically, socially input a lot. And also in a way having even like having so much of social realities, political realities, it's kind of impossible to ignore that issue also. So we have 6 members in our collective, and all of us we collaborate sometime and do a bigger project, or we collaborate separately, 3 of us, 2 of us, 4 of us, or we are also like individually also we are active. So we founded in 2013 after Hitman and I finished our master's degree. So there was again it really came organically as a necessity, also because Nepal, in a country like Nepal where we don't have a lot of government support in art, there's no support at all, or there's no proper galleries or non-profit or profit organization to support arts. So it came in a way as a platform where we could do the things which according to our nature, and nobody would restrict us in a way. And so we were very careful to be a unit which would maintain our freedom of expression as an individual artist. So when sometimes there are issues when the organization grow, so we were very aware of that also. But at the same time, like in Philippines, we have a lot of our communal culture is very strong. So our community are very strong. So it also comes naturally that we are working together. We are sharing all our resources. When I say resources, we are sharing our, like when we sell our paintings or there are something, we actually share all the resources. We are very, like, we don't have any hierarchy, there's no director, there's no nothing. So everybody have their own decisions, and we pass those decisions collectively. So yeah, things like that.
And also, I want to add a little bit. So our education system is more, like European-centric or Western-centric education, which was actually imposed by the British in India, and we adopted it and manipulated it later. So when we were studying, we couldn't find it related to our daily life or our realities. So that's why after doing our master, we started this collective as to criticize or to comment or reflect our realities that every day we face, or the realities we are living in.
Anybody there has a question or something that you would like for them to tell you more about it? Yeah, this one.
So what are your strategies as you said earlier that there is no like government support? What are your strategies as artists to navigate that kind of system?
So one thing when we are in a collective is it's a difficult but easy at the same time. Difficult in one case that we have to, when there's a like funding or something, we are 6 individuals and we have to divide it. But easy at the same time because we are skilled in different ways. So in a lot of time we are independent in our own rights. So we don't need to pay extra or like hire somebody. So we're all 6 of us are skilled in different ways. So somebody are good in video, somebody this that. So that is the kind of, and also when there are deadlines, we don't need to hire assistant or bring out assistant. We kind of help each other in a way. Yeah.
I just asked you just on this subject of collective creativity and collaboration. Even in your own work, you also have this collectiveness experience. You know? So you spoke about your individual work, but you either work with like a specific social group, or even in the making of the work itself. In the case of some of the paintings, I believe you mentioned that you ask like your colleagues to help you to actually do the painting. So just maybe for the if you can show the painting again with the rubble of the earthquake in the background, just to explain a little bit of technically. This sounds a bit formalist, but I think that it's interesting. The facture, like the form that it was painted, just because there's such a big tradition of social subjects represented through painting here, is for them to understand, for us to understand a little bit of how you made the painting.
This one.
Yes, this was written up. Yeah.
So yeah. I did this work in 2015 after the earthquake. So for 6 months I was not able to work because I was coordinating the post-earthquake community art project. So it's a large painting. It's 8 feet by 12 feet. It's not only painting, like the figure is a painting. It's acrylic, and the background is a stapling drawing on the print. So it's like all the photographs was later stapled. So yeah, not only my colleagues helped for me to finish this work, also some students from the university. So in some cases we invite students as an assistant or as a volunteer to work with us. So it's also like a learning process for them, because we cannot learn many things in institute or university. So through the projects of program, it's a good opportunity to student to learn more, like experimental works, working with the artist, and being part of the projects of program. So,
Way of question.
Well, Nepal is kind of dear to my heart. I've been traveling to Nepal since 2013, and the last time I stayed there for 3 months. So I've made many friends also, and the question I have is regarding migration, because more than half of my Nepali friends are already outside Nepal. They're already working in Dubai, in Doha. And a close friend of mine, his son is already studying in Australia. So my question is regarding migration in Nepal, and what are your thoughts regarding the sentiment of most Nepalese, especially the youth, of how westernized they are and how interested they are discovering more outside Nepal, and like for example the music, the culture, and is it an issue? Because is it an issue regarding nationalism and the love for the country? Because, as you mentioned, there's a sort of a lack of support from the government, and how they should, the government is doing to make sure that Nepali, the people, stay in their country and not reside outside. Want to know your thoughts regarding migration, more and westernized culture of most Nepalese.
So I will try to cover the half answer over here. So from 2050 years, Nepal has went through, like this political instability and lots of political changes and social changes. So we were like kingdom, autocratic king rules, like 104 years we've been autocratic rule by Rana regimes, and later we had democracy. Again we had takeover by the king, and we had this panchayat autocratic systems for like 17, 18 years. So from 1990s, we had this multi-party system, like we call it a multi-party system revolution. But after 6 years, the civil war started. So this lots of, and later this royal massacre, and now we are Federal Democratic Republic of Nepal. So in 2015 we just draft our new constitution. So I think lots of this unstable political struggle causes the mass migration. And like talking about the patterns of migration, the different patterns, like those who go to Australia or developed countries like Australia, Europe, or America for study, mostly them are from like high middle class or elites of the country. So, but those who join to this labor force in Middle East and Malaysia, they are especially from the very low financial background. So, but I just want to little bit elaborate it on like the remittance. Like, but only the 2% of remittance is sent by these developed countries, 18% only the Qatar have 18%. Like those who are working in Qatar, they send 18% remittance. So mostly the people working in Middle East and Malaysia, they are the main, like key factors of sending remittance. So those who go to this developed country, mostly they want to settle there. Even they took their family and they don't want to return back to Nepal. But those who are going to Middle East and Malaysia, they go there for only like 2 years. They increase their visa and working permit, but they cannot get a permanent visa over there, citizen over there. So these are the one issue I want to highlight, and I think Sheelasha can talk the second part.
So regarding like westernization, like we went to some of the malls in Philippines, and what I think globalization has taken away is the individuality and the personality of that space. So it's like the same in Kathmandu. Like when you go to the mall of Kathmandu, you see all this repetitive same brands, and I think you couldn't really distinguish either you were in Philippines or in Kathmandu or anywhere around the world actually. So that is there, but at the same time I think there's also this new wave of generation who are becoming more politically aware, and so they're kind of so what happened you can see when he's talking about civil war. So civil war was a bloody war, like people died in that, so it was like war. So this new kind of a revolution in a way is happening, is more like an intellectual way. So these youth are going back to the history pages, looking back to the manuscript, looking back to the calligraphies which people have forgotten, and relearning it, and then really learning it, and then analyzing their own histories. So this is a kind of the sentiment which is coming on, but then it's not really anti-Western sentiment. It's, I think, really, it could be a little bit, but not really. It's, I think, coming up with the necessity to become more socially, politically, historically more aware in a way.
Hello, good afternoon. I'm very interested with the last part of your presentation about I believe it has something to do also with overseas Filipino workers, am I right? Yes. I understand it's still a work in progress. Is it? Yeah. So I was very interested, maybe you can talk a bit more about it because my father is an overseas Filipino worker, and those pictures you saw really touched my heart, and those pictures you showed us with the letters, we also used to do that for my dad. And actually, I grew up. Right now, me and my siblings were still pretty distant with our father. Our relationship is not that good, and we attribute that to the fact that when I was born, I'm 20 years old, and since I was 1 year old, he has been away. So yeah, I was thinking maybe you can talk more about that work and what your progress is. Yes, thank you.
It really is in very preliminary stage, like very primary stage now. But as I said, when we are talking about migration, when we are talking about like a lot of people going outside of the country, we very much focus upon, in general, about the statistics and numbers and the larger effect. In a way, yes, remittance has really, when I was I don't know much about Philippines, I'm just like learning, but when I was doing this parallel research in a way, yes, the remittance has really like boosted the economy of both countries, and really helped, even in the time of the crisis, like economic, when there was like global crisis, people were sending the dollars, like foreign money, foreign currency in the countries, and it helped to sustain. So it's not, we cannot argue in that, but like I said, like we are focused now. We're trying to kind of focus upon how, when we talk about this bigger picture, bigger benefits, we are also kind of consciously or unconsciously ignoring the micro social effects of it. Like what you said, like what you have experienced. When there are in Nepal also, like there are an entire generation who see their parents once in a 5 year only, and how that connects, how that develops this weird kind of relationship when you have like parents, but at the same time you are not emotionally connected with them, and how does it affect when this entire generation are like growing up in a certain kind of mentality, and how does it affect in that community, in that society, when there are no generation, like there are things which you learn through your parents, through your grandparents, it passed down from generation to generation, like oral histories, certain kind of values, certain kind of living style. What happens, there's like entire generation gap to that entire society and the entire country itself, and we are seeing the effect of it, but we're very much not talking about it. Or also we still have to see the effect, but how can we be prepared in that, and how when we talk about this kind of thing also, like how we are so like we don't have the visual literacy in Nepal is so less, and then how this visual representation or other kind of alternative representations, alternative kind of discourse is also so important, which we are very much ignoring as a nation itself. Like our education system are so much based upon like writing and like talking kind of methods, and yeah, so these kind of thing we feel are important, even though it's kind of it looks tiny. So there is a statement, the personal is political. I kind of believe in it.
Like in context of Nepal, like we don't have a documenting or archiving concept.
Yeah.
So most of our history is very one-sided narrative, especially manipulated by the rulers. So even talking about the migration, there is no critical discourse like talking about this micro level of personal life. It's more about only the remittance and the government is gaining a profit from it, like sending them and yeah, getting the money. In Nepal, it's almost 33% of the GDP. The government said it's like around 20 to 23, but the economics or the exports, they said it's around 33, which is really high. So through our work, what we also want to, it's my personal desire, my personal interest. Like after 30, 40 years, when this generation look at the work, look this visual documentation that we do, so they will get the information about this foreign time. They can go through it and get information about the situation that happening right now.
And also another thing is like when we are looking at the micro details, we are also looking at the macro phenomenon. So in a lot of time when we are researching both in Nepal and we found out in Philippines also, there are bigger factors which are influencing the migration pattern. Like in Philippines is also agricultural country and depends upon the economy very much kind of revolves around fishing culture, fisheries, and how it is being impacted by the climate change. So because the pattern of rainfall is shifting, the wind is blowing in different seasons, fishermen cannot go to like deeper parts of the sea, and there are other social and political reasons, like international political reasons also, which are beyond the control of these individual human beings, this individual fisherman, this individual farmer, and but then these larger factors are impacting them, which is causing them to leave their profession, which they have been doing for maybe hundreds of years, and then leave it and then go abroad or work to another countries, adapt to another kind of working system. So yeah, there are like so many things also. So we kind of wanted to look at the both macro and micro levels.
I would say that macro and micro discussion, I think the discussion of migration and these workforces that are exported by different countries such as Philippines and Nepal, as I said at the beginning, should be connected or seen within the larger way in which the global economy works. So again, I live half of the time in Hong Kong, and the financial capital of Asia wouldn't be working if there weren't Indonesian or Filipino domestic workers or nannies taking care of their children. There wouldn't be feminism in that sense in Hong Kong. There wouldn't be businesswomen going to the office if there wouldn't be Filipino nannies. So it wouldn't be like so much coffee that you need to go to the office with a certain amount of coffee being served by the many Nepalese that are behind the cashier of Starbucks, etc. So it's a global issue, but we speak of it nationally. It's a global. It should be a global concern.
Hi guys. Obviously, the line of work that you do is very emotionally, if not psychologically tasking. So when you go to these communities, you're not just trying to visually narrate what they're experiencing, but also somehow you are absorbing the trauma that they are going through, trauma, separation, calamities, etc. So as artists, how do you keep yourselves motivated to pursue this line of work when instead you can just do something aesthetically beautiful and not be like immersed in the dismal realities of suffering?
Yeah, sometimes it's really, really difficult. Yeah, sure. It's like emotionally very driving. It's when you see this, sometimes you also are in a position that you know so much, but at the same time you have little power to contribute in that change in one way. But in another way, when this, a lot of the time when we meet the people, they are, a lot of them, they're very keen to share the stories. And then when in the PAT also, when we were going, we are very conscious about the power balance, that we don't become this powerful. And then, so we're very keen to be very conscious to have that grassroots intervention. And when we were asking them, we don't go beyond their will also. So there are some personal things which they might not want to share at the moment, and we very much respect that. We're not like, we don't function as a journalist, like ask this. So we don't work like that. So a lot of the time we work, that's why we work in long durations, months, years. We build relationship, and it really goes organically. We never go beyond somebody's wills, and with the time, we share also, like, we share our private personal information, they share, we become friends. If that does not work, then we don't continue. So it also becomes a kind of a collective sharing and healing process, understanding process. And so in the world we grew up in, through the medias, especially through the fairy tale stories, there is a lot of presentation of this is bad, this is good, this is dark side, this is light side. And I think it's a very wrong misrepresentation of the reality. It's like a spectrum, and there are different realities. We have to see it as a reality, not good or bad or positive or negative, because it has different impact, it has their own place, and pain also has its own place, and pain also teaches us so many things, and even it might be difficult in certain time, we have to take it. And also all these realities, even it might seem difficult or negative in a superficial way, it teaches so many parts of our life, so many parts of the world we live in and the universe we live in. So we kind of take it that way. And also another factor is, I don't know if it's like in my nature, maybe like our nature, when we express it, it kind of, you know, those energies, it drains away through that material. It kind of happens to me. So it really comes out and takes its life in that work. So whenever we like do the work and the energy kind of stays in the artwork, I think.
Yeah, it's really, like emotionally energy draining, and you go through, because you will be part of the, like this same situation. Like when we went to meet many families, some cases were very fresh. They were just dead like 2 days before. So dead body was just arriving. So it's really hard to handle those situations. But slowly, this continuous contact with them. So we built a trust, and we became very, very close. And we are like, comfortable to share. Then slowly, it's like Sheelasha said, we sharing all those pain, or we sharing many things. And also now slowly people knowing us as we working on these issues. Many, like underprivileged person, they don't have the reach, and they don't know how to go through these official channels and systems. So like in many cases, like when somebody died, then if the company doesn't refund it, then they have to pay themselves to bring back the body. And it's like very long, like official process. So many people don't know any idea about it. So sometimes they come out to us, then we try to help. Like in this case also, this body was from Dubai. So he did suicide there. So he was from my hometown. So his relatives know me like I'm working on this issue. So she can contact me and we help them to get back to body. So yeah. And it's give you some kind of satisfaction when you're able to do something. Even it's a very small scale, it's a good feeling.
What you asked is a very interesting, a larger discussion that I think that we're going to try to have more of this discussion with other artists that we're bringing within the program. What I think is interesting about photo in practice is that in relation to this morale debate, is that you as artists actually do produce an artwork in the sense that it's not, I mean, this image that you just sent us is just for a matter of context. The content is not actually, you don't present the photograph as the work, but you as artists have a process of creating new images, and what I just found now, like what you were saying, it's a very beautiful way of understanding how to make art, of seeing it in, like projecting the archaeology of the artwork, you know, like what will this work be in the future when people see it. And some of these paintings that you've shown us are currently in some private, some public collections, some of them even abroad, and somehow they are visual memories of a certain specific time of Nepalese history, immigration, global history. You know? And in this question of the morale, I think that there is a term that is quite used in academia, which is called misery porn, the pornography of misery, and that's much related to the representation through the photographic camera or the film camera that has ideologically that moral balance of representation, you know? Because there is this power that you just talked about, that you go and meet these people in a way that understanding that there is a power structure, you know? And so there is out there a lot here in the Philippines, in Latin America, anywhere, a lot of misery porn art or visual making. But in your case, again, what's interesting is that you still think of the artwork, like there's an art that is being named at the end, so it's not just going taking a photograph of a dead body.
We're out of time.
Yeah. Well, before everybody goes, I just wanted to, well, thank you and give a round of applause. Everybody goes, I just want to self-promote a program that we're doing at Bellas Artes, which was around here. And so this event, the talks and seminars that are normally, So we do a lot of public programs at Bellas Artes aside from the residencies or exhibitions, but we're going to do a more concrete program that is kind of like an academic experiment that is called Escuela, and it's an interdisciplinary school period. We call it period because it's not that we're opening a school, but it's going to be 2 cycles, one in May, June, and the other one in September to November, where we've invited different, I don't know why this is like this. Yes. We've invited different guests, Filipino and international, to give keynotes, seminars, workshops. The keynotes are open to the public, but the seminars are for around 12 participants to have more like intensive moments with these people that are flying into Manila either in May or in September. So if you just go online, you'll see there's an application process, so there's all the information is online. And thank you again. Yes. Yes, just to give more context of this, we've divided the program of Escuela into 5 topics. So one topic is called Queer Filipiniana. The second one is called Context-Responsive Art Practices, which are more of this type of practices that Sheelasha brought us on. It's responsiveness to a specific social group or a specific moment. And the other one is called Asia Pacific Visual Histories of War and Post-War, and that's more art historical for the group of art historians that are here who are interested. Another one is called Indigeneities and Contemporary Art, and the last one is on dance and performance that we've titled Movement and the Choreographic Turn. The idea is, as I've explained, it's more an experimental, interdisciplinary platform where you can get access to all of these guests. Yeah. So thank you. And thank you, the Vargas Museum again, for hosting.